So I was lying in bed one night with my wife, just eternally doom scrolling on my phone. And I was on the most wholesome and supportive website there is, Reddit. And I saw a post that a woman had made where she asked this question. Is it true that guys just like fantasize all the time about like saving their friends? Like some terrible situation happens, like an active shooter, and a guy just fantasizes about saving the day? And every guy in the comments was like, yeah, of course, that's what we do. That's what we do all the time. If you're a guy, I believe in my heart that you spend a good majority of your life just fantasizing about crap like that. I rolled over to my wife and asked her, like, don't women fantasize about things like this? And she was like, absolutely not. Why would you ever do that? There hasn't been a day of my life where I have not like fantasized about how I would rob a bank and get away with it, or like how I would pull a trick over on a genie to get more wishes, or how I would save my friends if I was in a war. As a matter of fact, that's the thing that I daydream about the most, being in battle. I never served in the military. I wanted to. I was all scheduled to go to a military academy, but it just never happened. I think it's one of the reasons I really like to wear field watches, because they're very military based. However, the war that fascinates me the most is the Great War, the First World War. It was really the first time in history we were moving from like Napoleonic era combat to more modern style combat. We had weapons that were more accurate. We had airplanes, we had tanks or pseudo tanks, and these troops were trained to just like stand in a line and shoot at each other. That wasn't gonna work, so what did they do? They dug trenches to get out of the line of fire. Trench warfare. Now, one summer I did road construction. I spent 12 hours a day with a shovel in my hand shoveling gravel or digging trenches. And I remember standing at the bottom of a trench I could barely see out of and feeling like I was in World War I. That's as close as I ever got. I can go out and I can buy a World War II era style field watch. I can buy a current style field watch. I can buy a Vietnam era style field watch. But a World War I era field watch, what do you do about that? So not that long ago, I was at a convention walking around mentioning watches that everybody has told me were great, but I'd just never seen them. One of them was the Vario 1918 trench watch. I have never heard anybody say anything bad about this watch. I have watched so many reviews of it, never seen it in person. Lo and behold, Vario reached out to me and offered to send me one of their watches for review, the 1918 trench watch. They sent it to me for free. I get to keep it. So that means this is a sponsored video, the first sponsored video ever on this channel. Now, they may have sent me this watch, but they did not buy my opinion. My opinion is my own. I will not sugarcoat anything. I will not gloss over any problems with this watch. But let's talk about it. Now, I have seen some World War I era watches in my day in the metal, and this watch looks like those. It evokes that same sense. Now, back then, wristwatches weren't really a thing. People were just strapping pocket watches into these like makeshift leather straps that they wore on their wrist, okay? Or they were soldering lugs onto their pocket watches and wearing those on makeshift leather straps. Now, there were some wristwatch style things used in some other campaigns before World War I, but World War I was the first real large full-scale war where wristwatches were commonly used by most of the people. Why? You had to coordinate attacks, right? If you're down in the trench, you're down covered in mud, crawling around, waiting for the right time to run up out of the trench and run over to the next trench and try to stick your bayonet in the enemy across the way. You don't want to be pulling a pocket watch out of your freaking pocket. So people did what they had to do to keep the time. And this watch looks just like that. It's really the only modern way you have to wear a 1918 watch without actually owning a watch from that time period, which by now, those are like collector's pieces, right? Those aren't something you're really gonna just knock around in day to day. But you can with this one. Now, spoiler warning, this watch is not perfect, but this watch I honestly think is one of the best watches I've ever worn that's under $500, and it comes in well below that. As a matter of fact, in the United States, it's $388, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the deal of the century. This is a pocket watch style with an enamel dial and a small seconds subdial. It's absolutely beautiful. It comes in a variety of colors, a variety of finishes. This is the most 1918 looking one they have, so that's the one I went with. Now the specs on this watch are incredible. I don't know what else you could ever ask for. The case comes in two sizes. You can get a 37 millimeter, which is what I'm wearing here, which is more traditionally sized, or you can get a 40 millimeter, which, you know, that's a big honking watch, especially in this size, but if you want something a little bigger, that's totally available to you. Now it is made out of 316L stainless steel, which is kind of like the industry standard for watches. It holds up really well. I have been wearing this thing for like a month. I've knocked it around a few times and it hasn't really damaged the watch at all. It is, I would say, combat ready. This is why I would have no problem wearing this watch into World War I era combat, okay? The case thickness is 10 millimeter, which is pretty low. It does have a 2 millimeter high double domed sapphire crystal that has AR coating applied in it, okay? It has very good transparency. I have no problem reading this watch at all. Some watches that are domed and have a lot of AR coating, they look kind of blue or they're hard to see at certain angles. Not this one. It is 10 out of 10 legible. It doesn't get more legible on a watch than this, in my opinion. It has 100 meters of water resistance, 10 atmosphere, which is like, you know, great. Like almost in dive watch territory. You don't have to worry about wearing this in the rain or in the mud or washing your hands with it, right? You're gonna be A-okay. Like I said, this is like combat ready. Now this does not have standard lugs. This has fixed lugs like you would find on a watch from this time period, okay? They are what they are. You're not gonna change them. The 37 millimeter watch has an 18 millimeter lug width, which is decent enough. The 40 millimeter wide watch has a 20 millimeter lug width. These are just industry standard sizes, like these make perfect sense. An 18 millimeter wide strap, great on this watch. But you're not gonna be using your strap collection on this, okay? You gotta wear like a NATO, or you gotta wear one of the straps that comes with the watch, or you gotta get another one from Vario, okay? It's just the way it is, all right? People back then were limited in their options. You're limited on this one. But if you're wearing this kind of watch, you're not really looking for like a go anywhere, do anything kind of watch, right? This watch fits in a very specific niche. Now, the finishing on this watch is really nice. We have like a horizontal brushed case around the center point and a high gloss bezel, okay, which I think is very attractive. I would have preferred for it to have like an entirely brushed look to it because, you know, if you're wearing this watch and you're pretending you're in a war, you don't want a highly polished bezel to stand out in a combat situation. Like someone's gonna see you, okay? We don't want that. Now the movement in this is a Miyota 82S5 automatic watch. It's great. It has Côte de Genève. If you ever see the inside of it, I don't know, you're not gonna see it. You can get an exhibition case back for this. I didn't get one. It has hand widening, it's hacking, 21 joules, 40-hour power reserve. Really nice movement. The watch runs smooth. That second hand, very smooth. But I will say this watch's rotor is loud as hell. When I'm driving in my car and I make a bunch of turns, I can hear the rotor spinning in the watch. It's mildly distracting, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you're moving around, you might hear it if you're in a kind of a quiet situation. Maybe I'm just really picky about it, but you can hear the rotor, okay? That is a minor nitpick. Now, Vario is well known for making straps. As a matter of fact, I believe Vario made straps before they made watches, and I own a couple of their straps that I used for like my Casios. Like they make straps to replace the resin straps on your Casios, and Vario straps are unbelievably good. I have bought some $100 plus straps before that are not as high quality as like straps from Vario that are 1/3 of the cost. So if you're just looking for a strap, try out Vario. You'll be impressed. Now, this watch comes on a boot strap, which looks like a boot strap. I mean, that's what it is. Now these, while they are kind of weird and they look almost dated, they have a sort of neo-vintage sort of feel to them, thanks to Brad Pitt wearing one in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right? And throughout my life, they've been cool in the 90s, and I've seen them around more. Now, why does this strap exist? Well, boot straps existed primarily for fighter pilots and bomber pilots in World War II, because they were so high up and there was not a pressurized cabin and it got so cold up in the plane, the watches could like freeze to their wrist or they would get really, really cold. So they wore them on these big pieces of leather to protect their wrist. And people used big straps of leather in World War I, bootstrap style, because one, more leather is better, it protects your wrist. Two, it protects the watch more from the backside, and it did get very cold. But most importantly is the watch would get dirt and grime up under it, and that would rub against your wrist and like rub your wrist raw. That's one of the reasons that they used that. It gave more surface area and it was harder for dirt to work its way up under the strap than it was up under the watch, so you didn't get like, you know, raw skin. Also at the time, people would wear their watches not on the outside of their wrist, but on the inside of their wrist. And I've heard people give a lot of different reasons for why that was. The truth is, the reason they were on the inside of the wrist, so when they held a rifle, the time was on the inside. So they could go like 3, 2, 1, run, right? They didn't have to like 3, 2, 1, run, grab my gun and go, like, you know. So that's why they wore on the inside. When I wear this, I do wear it on the outside of my wrist. I've tried wearing it on the inside of my wrist many times. It's real cool when I'm working in the yard. Sucks real bad when I'm typing at a keyboard. Okay, so now it is very comfortable on the boot strap. I like it. It stands out a lot. It looks kind of weird to wear this in a professional setting, and I work in a professional setting in my day job, and the boot strap, little weird. However, the way most people wear this is they remove the boot part, the big wide leather piece, and they just wear it on the normal remaining leather strap that exists from this. That's why I see a lot of people wear it. I wore it like that and it looks really cool. I think that's the way it looks the best as a modern kind of everyday watch. However, these little metal rivets, these screw rivets that hold it onto the fixed lugs, the back of those did rub, like push into my wrist. And I found it to be a little uncomfortable, way less comfortable than on the wide leather boot portion. Now, I can't really say that's a nitpick because this watch was designed to be worn on this big boot strap. So if you do decide to wear it like that, it may look more fashionable. However, it is not as comfortable, not by a long shot. Also included is a freaking shrapnel guard / blast guard. These were common at the day because people did not have sapphire crystals. They used like acrylic or just sometimes glass, and it was real easy to break your watch. So they fashioned these blast shields to wear over their watch, and Vario sent this to me just as a bonus. Thank you for that. To wear it, it makes me feel like I am cosplaying like steampunk stuff when I wear this on here. It makes the watch illegible, right? It makes it harder to read. But if you want to have an authentic World War I style watch, I mean, this is like it. Like, this is the whole deal, right? On the boot strap with this blast guard. It's cool. It's definitely cool. But it's like not practical. All right, not practical. Vario also sells these kind of regular straps that have a brass clip in it, and it snaps onto the fixed lugs, right? And it's really cool. They sent me this dark gray one, and I wore it a little bit. I will say I didn't like the space between the strap and the watch case. I felt there was too much space there. It was nice, but it made it a little too dressy. This is a war watch. I want it to look like a war watch, but if you just want this as your one-off watch, there's a variety of these kinds of straps. They're pretty cool. They are cool. Now, my preferred way to wear this watch, and it's been summer and hot as can be, is on this blue Perlon strap. Now, I did not get this from Vario. I already had this that I wore on like another vintage style watch. I threw it on this and I thought that was like the way. That is the way to wear this watch. I kind of want to get a Perlon in like a mustard yellow to wear with this watch. As much as I like the boot strap, buddy, I don't want to be wearing this in the southeastern United States in flipping August, okay? It's too hot. Just the sweat under this thing is disgusting, all right? But you do have options with this. You are not locked to this style strap, so don't think you are. This thing is a strap monster, but a very niche strap monster, right? You gotta wear it on something that'll work with those fixed lugs. Now, there is another issue. The fixed lugs do not come to the bottom of the case. If you take a normal watch and you remove the strap and you lay it flat on a table, usually the lugs touch the bottom of the table and you can see under the watch, or the back of the watch and the lugs sit flush with the table. That is not the case with this. The watch sits below the lugs. The lugs are proud of that. So when you run a NATO up and through this watch, the NATO is like pushed upwards. It looks like it's concave. And it's always like that when you wear a NATO, but this is really pronounced, okay? If you wear a really thick NATO strap, the NATO feels like it's like coming up to the top of the surface of the watch, okay? That's also a kind of the crazy look. You might be able to bend the fixed lugs downward. I would not recommend doing that. The reason they're so high is to account for all this material on this leather strap, okay? If they were completely flat, then this would not fit on the boot strap, okay? And now that they're raised up, it makes other straps wear a little strangely, okay? Still, minor nitpick. Now, the dial of this is porcelain, and real porcelain, which looks fantastic. It is perfectly white. I mean, it looks like glass. It's high gloss. The numbers are not applied, they're printed, and they are not raised above the surface. They really cleverly did like this shadow shading with it to make them look like they're elevated, and that adds a ton to this watch. But the dial, my dial, is perfect. Like, I see no flaws on it. It is, I mean, it is white. It looks like an old piece of china. And porcelain ages over time, but I don't know if porcelain will age in a modern watch that's like sealed and waterproof. It ages when you leave it out in the elements, but it looks exactly the part you want it to. Love that. The subdial looks incredible there. It is very detailed, and it is recessed down into the porcelain. It's not sitting flat on top of the dial. That adds a lot of sophistication to this watch that really just sets it apart from other similar watches like this that have a sub-seconds dial. A lot of them is just the sub-seconds dial is printed and the little second hand just sits right on top. Don't like that as much, but this looks great. No complaints about that. The crown is signed with a V for Vario. It looks very good. It is also highly textured and easy to grab onto, which, you know, you would need if it was caked in mud. So it's easy to grab out. It is down at like the kind of 4 o'clock position, and on the boot strap, if you're wearing the watch, it can be a little hard to grab it, but you know, this watch has a good power reserve. It keeps good time. If you wear it every day, you're not gonna have to adjust it too much or mess with it. This watch does have C3 Super Luminova in the cathedral hands and printed on the dial, and it looks good. I mean, it's gonna look better than any radium watch you had back then. This looks fantastic. Like I said, I wore it the other night when I put my daughter to bed, and it was actually bothering her from the light, so that's okay. Let's go. I learned my lesson. Louder odor, bright lume. But well done. Like I said, it does have these cathedral hands, which were standard for the time. They look amazing. They look perfect. I cannot find any flaws with the finish of this watch. None. Now, the back of this watch is decorated. Like I said, you can get it with an exhibition case back. I did not. I liked the decoration of it. It is a tribute to the soldiers from Singapore that did fight in World War I, okay, everybody. It was a world war. Everybody fought in it, okay? Very cool, very beautiful. You're not going to see it because it's on the boot strap and against your wrist, but it's a nice little feature to have there. For $388, this is incredible. My only complaint is that the rotor's too loud, and the other complaints I have, like the tall lugs, that's just the way the watches are. And if you're wearing this watch, you got to take that with the watch, because at the end of the day, the purpose of this watch is to, like, you know, pretend and make believe that you were a soldier in World War I, right? That's what it is. As I'm wearing this, it does make me feel like I'm in World War I, but I'm missing some of the features that are common in modern watches, right? It feels very period. It's kind of like if you went and bought a reproduction Model T Ford. One of these old classic cars that like doesn't have seat belts. It only goes 30 miles an hour. You know, you got to crank it to start it, and it's missing a lot of stuff. This watch really isn't missing anything, but it feels so vintage, it's like foreign. This style of watch is over 100 years old. It feels like it is. Now that's cool, but as you're wearing it, it's just so unfamiliar. I was gonna say off-putting. It's not off-putting. I'm like taken aback by it. Like I said, I feel like I'm driving like a Model A Ford. Even though it's made with modern parts, it's so good at being vintage that it like throws me off. So that's not really a complaint as much as it's a compliment to Vario. This is done so well that it doesn't even feel real. Like when I look down at my wrist, it doesn't even really look like a watch. My brain doesn't interpret it as a modern watch. It sees something else, like I'm looking in a book, which is strange. And I've been wearing this, like I said, for a month, and I haven't gotten used to that. I will say, when I get up every morning and I select which watch I'm gonna wear, if I'm like in a busy hustle and bustle kind of mindset and I gotta get up and get going, my brain does not jump to this watch. It's just it just doesn't do it. Like, that watch is made for being in a certain mood. But the other night, when I was like watching a war movie and I was in that mood, the next day I just wore this watch. So this watch could be your everyday watch, but this watch is really more of like a historical piece. And I get that. Like, you know, lots of companies do things like that. But Vario is really the only one doing that with modern watches. Where else you can get a 1918 style trench watch? And this thing is a trench watch. It is. Like I said, I have no doubt I could take this thing to war and it would hold up. I'm blown away with it. Like I said, I never saw a bad review of this watch. The only thing I have bad to say about it is the rotor's loud. And that might just be my watch. I don't know. Watch nerds are gonna love it. They're gonna think it's really cool. Every time I post this on watchrng, they're like, heck yeah, dude, the Vario 1918, they know all about it. They love it. They love this watch. To me, I love this watch, but it's not a watch I wanna wear every single day. It's a special occasion watch for when I'm in the mood. I'm gonna have to give this watch like a 9 out of 10. It blew me away. Congratulations, Vario. I love your watch. I think it's great. Thank you for sending it to me. Hope you guys liked the review. If you did, do that for me. Subscribe to the channel. Leave me a comment. Hype the video if you're able to do it and think I deserve it. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.